Okay. Liz,
All
you want to
right.
kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So, thanks all for coming out this evening. We are going to be presenting a wayfinding signage strategy this evening. This is following up on the economic visioning study that we spent, I don't know, a couple years doing, and was a recommendation that came out of the visioning for that. And so we've continued to work with Street Sense, our consultant, and we're going to present those initial findings, and we'll talk about next steps and where we go from there. So Jody Dubiowski from Street Sense will be walking us through, and I guess it's a small enough group we can just take questions as we go. If you guys know how to do the raise your hand or speak out, whatever. And obviously also allow for discussion at the end. Any Walter, did you want to throw in anything or
No, Liz, you did a good job
okay.
summarizing it. So I think it's pretty straightforward. This is a small but frankly potentially helpful initiative. So let's let's see where there's interest and feedback. Look forward to that.
Yeah, thank you both. And yeah, it is a small enough group that, if you want to interrupt me and ask a question, I think we've got plenty of time for that. So,
Sure.
um, all right. So am just going to go through a summary of the effort to date. Um, and this starting off with kind of an overview of how this process,
Audio.
Okay.
sorry. Oh. How this process generally works. We do this work a lot at Street Sense, and we break it into phases. So phase one, which is where we are now, is the strategy phase. And that's where we kind of do an audit, learn about the area, determine the types of signage that is needed, what's already existing, what's maybe missing. And then the outcome of this phase is a reference document that guides the placement and intent of signage. So you'll see in phase two, that's where actual signs would be designed. So we haven't done that yet. And phase two, the concept design, is the phase where we develop all of the types of signs that would be needed, what each sign would say specifically, and where it would be located. And the outcome of that is a package that can be used to solicit bids from a subcontractor who could uh, manufacture the sign and install it. And then phase three is bidding and construction. And it's important to note that, in this case, and this is not uncommon, there are multiple owners and owner groups involved. And you'll see as we go through the strategy that, there are signs on various different properties owned by different people. And so it's likely that the implementation of this would be rolled out kind of on in sort of a piecemeal manner as folks are able to do it and motivated, but the strategy document and the subsequent design package would provide a guiding document as a roadmap so that the outcome is that everything kind of works together. So that's kind of how the whole thing comes together. We kicked off this process in January with a walk through the Lake Ann area. And we had representatives, many of you are here today, but we had representatives from business groups and owner groups and other interested parties who walked with us and pointed out specific maybe problem areas or opportunity areas, things that were working well. And this is kind of a summary of those key opportunities. And I'll just kind of highlight them here briefly. Number one is kind of an improved project identification on Barron Cameron, kind of a refresh of existing signs, improving visibility as you're driving by so that you know that something is there. And that leads into improved entry signage on North Shore as you're coming in, kind of a continuation of that arrival sequence. There was noted a need for clarifying navigation to the public parking areas from any direction. There are moments where that's unclear. It was also noted that there's a need for improved pedestrian navigation through the parking lot and across North Shore Drive, especially with the addition of more residential units across that road. That's becoming a tricky area. There were opportunities for improved wayfinding from the other trails in the area and the other clusters, and just overall an opportunity to improve the pedestrian directory signage that kind of helps you find specific businesses or other key points of interest. There were some other notes that were kind of brought up as an overall kind of things to think about in the long term in terms of an awareness of the existing branding and style guide, which we'll touch on later on this evening as well. Thinking about other elements that could add kind of a flavor and a sense of place, sense of this being a district, such as banners on North Shore Drive, and just a conversation about consistent color coding for different types of signs and systems, a consistent design language, and thinking about how this all works together with future beautification efforts or other things that could help slow or direct traffic in addition to signage, such as trees or different paving textures, things like that. So that was back in January, and then we put our heads down at our desk and kind of came up with a draft strategy. And the overview, again, like I said at the beginning, is that the goal of this document is to create kind of a roadmap for where signs should be placed and what they should be directing people to. So we haven't designed the specific language to go on a particular sign at this point. But we do have some key principles, including brand consistency, so that there's a unified language throughout. What you're looking for, what color, what shape of sign, that type of thing. Simplicity, so everything is clear and concise, easy to read. We have this principle called progressive disclosure, which is, based on the idea that you can't have all your signs can't have all of the information on them. So really thinking carefully about where people are trying to go and leading them progressively there. Predictability, all the information should be intuitive, easy to find. And then this idea of stepping stones, which sort of ties into progressive disclosure, but it's, repetition of elements that really help people kind of connect visually throughout the area. And so in order to understand what's working, what can be improved on, we start with an assessment. And so this was based on our walk and then also our other research. This map kind of lays out the different use types of buildings, which is helpful to understand. So yellow is residential. The orange is mixed use. So most of your commercial businesses are located in here. Red is also retail. And then you have a limited amount of office or institutional buildings. And, some key things to point out are that overall, it's a nicely scaled mixed use district, as you all know. And there's a very close-knit feel. The buildings work well together. The central commercial area is located in a nice central spot, but it's difficult to see when you're approaching outside of the area. If you don't know it's there, it's difficult to find. And that kind of is followed up by a lack of visibility just from major roads and even the parking lot, and a lack of clear signage directing visitors who may be coming to Lake Ann for the first time and find themselves in residential parking areas by mistake. They have a hard time figuring out where to go from there. This is just outlining the street hierarchy. there's not a ton of streets, but you have this main North Shore Drive with multiple access points to the overall area, and there's not a good sense of hierarchy. Again, it's easy to find yourself accidentally in a residential parking lot. And wayfinding should prioritize certain access points. It should be pretty clear based on where people are coming from, where they need to go. This shows the pedestrian hierarchy. There is a lot of pedestrian connection and synergy in this area based on, the really nice walkable scale that is a key part of the design of Lake Anne. We noted that, there are extensive trail networks that connect Lake Anne to other clusters and things outside of the area, but pedestrian travel for visitors to the area is generally aimed at arriving at the village center and then connecting to the trails around the lake. These are the locations of existing signs. And so here you start to see the types of language that we use to describe different types of signs and what they do. So out here on Barron Cameron, we have a couple of project beacons, and we have images illustrating these, but they are, those blue signs that kind of announce that Lake Anne is coming up. Gateway or monument signs mark entrances. Vehicular directional signs help point people in cars to specific destinations. And we've also noted there are some signs that mark the name and address of a building and help you identify what's in that building. And then from a pedestrian standpoint, we have the pedestrian directories and some trailblazing signs, which to date are the Reston Association trailblazing signs. So these are some photographs of kind of the existing conditions. You can see that the project beacons are in need of a bit of maintenance, and they lack not so much in these pictures, but when it's fully green as it is now, there's a lack of visibility due to trees. They are nicely contextual in the context and materiality, like they match the feel of Lake Anne. This sign does have a next left, but it's on the right side of the highway, which is kind of not intuitive if you're passing it at speed. And we have these gateway signs with the nice recognizable Lake Anne branding that is to date only repeated in a few places, but it's a potential jumping off point for repetitive features and elements. And then while there are some types of directional signs throughout the district, there are kind of competing types. And again, as was noted on our walk, there's nothing that really redirects you to public parking if you find yourself in the wrong parking lot by mistake. And then here we have the existing directory and parking, directory signage. The one thing that we noted here and has been noted before is that this is not visible from the parking lot. But otherwise, once you find your way in, there's a lot of information here that helps you get around. And then the existing trailblazing signage, again, is Reston Association signage. So there's a little bit. Any questions? It's in the chat. Okay. Any questions before we move on to kind of our proposal for the strategy piece?
There's just a couple of comments, Jody, about the blue signs being visible or not visible.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on which direction you're going. The side that has tri-point on, of course, where the new townhouses are, they have, vastly cut back the brush, and so they've kept the trees but gotten rid of the brush. On the other side, it's a disaster. It just,
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's so dependent on keeping those trees at bay.
Right.
That's also the sign that Jody mentioned is counterintuitive when you want to make a left and the sign's on the right. You know, the brain, especially when you're in a car, and you know, when you see something on the right, you intuitively think right. You know, so anyways, I think that's that of the two signs we agreed that that was the more problematic sign. So.
Okay, so as far as going through the strategy, we first map out the visitor journey. And so this is broken into arrival, commercial vehicular wayfinding, which is the people that are coming to the village center and the commercial businesses, residential vehicular wayfinding, which is, providing a clear path for residents and visitors to the residences, but also redirecting people to the commercial center if that's what they're looking for. Pedestrian wayfinding and then exiting. Those are kind of the different elements. And you can see, the audience and then kind of the strategy that governs the types of signs. And we'll go into this in a little more detail. So we just have here, we have a series of maps, again, kind of identifying some elements and decision points that lead up to where we're proposing some additional signs. So here are kind of the major vehicular decision points where you come to an intersection and you have to decide if you're going to keep going or if you're going to turn. That's kind of the simplest form of decision making. This is visitor arrival to commercial areas. So, there's a bit of a hierarchy here in that these are kind of the major entrance points. These are some smaller ones, and the ones without arrows are decision points where, a person who's driving might see that turn and have to decide, is that their turn or do they keep going? This is the same analysis for residential. So you can see, the arrows are slightly different, but the decision points are largely similar. We also mapped our understanding of commercial loading because that is another wayfinding need, especially for the businesses, which are, some of them are accessed down here, some over here. And then the pedestrian wayfinding. And this map is kind of meant to illustrate, in addition to the paths that exist, the major destinations that people are coming to on foot. So we've highlighted, the village center as one, Reston Community Center and Just Cats as kind of major commercial destinations. And then also indicating, from the parking, how do people move on foot? And then exiting, people have to be able to get out easily and figure out which way to the highway or wherever they're going. But as you can see, this is fairly simple. There's the main exits from the commercial parking lot. So this is a proposed signage plan based on that analysis. So you can see here that potentially in addition to those blue signs, we are proposing a new beacon in the center median that would serve as a locator for the district. And this is, it's not a design, it's roughly indicating location and magnitude. And then as you turn in on Village Road, there's a monument sign that indicates, Lake Ann is this way. Some of these locations remain the same. There's the existing gateway signs that we're kind of proposing the addition of directional information. And you'll see those kind of throughout at the major decision points. So that kind of goes back to the maps that we just looked at. Those are places where people need some information about what is where. Um, and then, there's an opportunity for additional building name signage. And we added that, because Lake Anne is such an interesting historic place and the names of places mean things. But it's an added layer of information. But it's less essential than the kind of items above it in the hierarchy. And then in terms of pedestrian, the addition of additional directory signage above and beyond what's already there, and some additional trailblazing signage throughout. And we'll kind of go through what these could look like. I guess, but this is a different section. So if we want to pause here for any comments or questions before we go on.
This is Susan Burwell.
Yes.
Could you describe monument signing versus Project Beacon?
Yes. A project beacon, there's usually like one, maybe two of those, and they're really like big and sculptural and help mark the location of a project from a major road. A gateway or monument sign, they're smaller and there can be multiple of them, but they have a consistent language that marks the various secondary entrances or ways to get into the project.
Jody, do we have some case or some precedent examples of those in
We
this?
do. That's the next section. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the last one is the building names. I'm not sure how that benefits, but let's go on.
Yeah, and that was one that, we feel similarly, like it's a non-essential sign in terms of wayfinding need, but because there's some existing and because of kind of the character of Lake Anne, we left it in here as a point of discussion. Yeah, so here we have some examples of the types of signs that we're talking about. So the Project Beacon, is large scale, again, kind of can be more sculptural. It's usually there's just one, and so you can kind of get creative with it. But it really helps people locate the project. The gateway signs, they can be something like this archway. They can be the lower, we have more examples on subsequent pages, kind of smaller scale. Sorry, Bruce. Oh, sorry. Someone said something. Directional signages should be simple, easy to read, and kind of strategic in what they're listing. So again, you don't have everything listed on every single sign. And then again, the building name signs, there's a potential to integrate with the architecture and kind of provide an extra layer of touchstones throughout the project. Here's some additional examples of, the variety of styles that these signs can take. And you can have a set of monument gateway signs that are a family and maybe there's some variation between them. And then of course, as you get into directional signs, there's obviously going to be variation between each sign. This is kind of example of what building name signs could be fashioned as. And then in terms of pedestrian signage, the pedestrian directories, I think are really important in this case. You have a lot of people on foot throughout the neighborhood and trying to find specific businesses. This would be helpful. And then the trailblazing signs are kind of a reduced form of that. So they're really like those extra stepping stones that, affirm that you're going the right direction, but they can be more subtle. They can, be kind of discoverable as you come around a corner and you're like, oh, I'm headed in the right direction. And again, they can take a variety of forms in terms of design and aesthetic and how simple or complex they are. They can be kind of whimsical or just really simple. pause here for any questions before we move on.
Did the precedents, I think was it Susan, or Eve, did that sort of help sort of clarify the difference between, say, a project beacon and a monument sign for you?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mhm.
Okay. So that's the strategy as proposed. The next steps, once the strategy is kind of finalized and agreed upon, you know, moving into the next phase of concept design. This is where we are now. This would be the next phase. Oh, so part of the concept design is using the Lake Anne branding to develop a common and consistent language for all of the signage that would be designed and then implemented. So in the course of this process, over the last few months, there have been various discussions with various stakeholders about the existing branding and whether or not it needs a refresh, which is a very normal thing for any brand that's been around longer than, 8 years or 10 years. That's a normal part of the cycle. And so part of the next phase is to determine if there is any additional branding work that needs to be done before we can design signs. And so what we've kind of included as part of this presentation is a summary of what the existing brand looks like and kind of a look back at the vision work that was developed as an early part of this effort, as part of the community engagement that was done a couple of years ago now, which is kind of crazy. So this is the review of that positioning and vision strategy that was developed by us, by StreetSense, with community participation. And if you'll recall, the positioning statement that was developed was that Lake Anne is for multicultural, multi-generational Northern Virginia residents. We are a truly original mixed-use village center that champions the progressive principles of Reston's beginning by creating modern opportunities for connections, community, and rejuvenation. And then these pillars were developed as essential qualities that kind of define the experience of Lake Anne. So lakeside pride, mid-century masterpiece, and outside the mainstream. It really speaks to, a love of the character and the close-knit community. The historic architecture as a key piece of Lake Anne's identity, and being a little bit, offbeat in its own special way, a kaleidoscope of experiences. And then in terms of personality, this was what was developed. It's describing Lake Anne as naturally low-key, warm, and quirky, which kind of echoes those brand pillars. It's that sense of community with its own unique identity. And the positioning platform, a destination village, positions Lake Anne as a local destination with regional draw. So really, it's about the local, but there's something special about it that brings people from outside, and envisions its future character as nostalgic, vibrant, and revitalized. So that was kind of everything that came out of the vision statement. And this is the existing brand. So there is an existing style guide and brand that articulates the brand vision and outlines how to use the logo and the fonts and the colors. And so, it's a very concise and simple, easy to read and use document. And what we're hoping to do over the course of the next few weeks. We have a survey that is live, and the goal of this is to determine whether or not folks think that the current branding reflects the values and the kind of character of Lake Anne, or if there's a refresh or a redesign needed, and just kind of what the community consensus and sense is on that. So this will all be I believe emailed out to the email list as well, along with a link to this recording and the presentation. But for those of you who are here now, the survey is live and will be until June 11th. I'll leave that up for a minute.
And if I can add to this discussion, so there are, as we mentioned in the beginning, considerations, because where the different signs would be located are on different property owners' property. Some limited amount is in VDOT right of way, but a lot is on private property. And there are trade-offs of, just tweaking, kind of refreshing what you have, or going back to square one in terms of what would take place. Not only over time would you have your current signs up with something that maybe didn't mesh with it, versus is that more important, knowing that it could take property owners a long time to get around to doing new signage, or is it more important to get something new? It's really, we're part of what the tonight is sort of float that notion of for you to think on, react to, and then the survey is trying to reach out and sort of cull that information from the community. So we can so that Street Sense in the second phase of actually designing what the signs look like and what words go on them, that we we know sort of the community's preference there.
Liz, it's Susan Burwell again. In the past, past years, a couple of roadblocks is that putting a monument sign on the VDOT property was tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Also, have you investigated anything about the historic district signage, the brown signs that you see, like Herndon Historic District, etc.? Was that part of your research?
So that is a standard, the brown signs are standard VDOT historic district kinds of signs.
We haven't gotten very far with them about getting signage.
Yeah. What we're suggesting with that beacon sign that would go in the median there is that it wouldn't be one of those brown historic district signs. And I don't know exactly what it would say, but it probably just say, I don't know, Lake Anne, and it would maybe have some directional information, or I don't know exactly, but that's what would get designed as to what that would look like.
Melissa and
we do have a little bit of money in the revitalization office that we can put towards this beacon sign. And so that's, but we, and I saw one of the comments about, how cool it could be if it was sort of very sculptural and built on the sculptural stuff in the plaza. And I think that's a very cool idea. We will have to be mindful of costs. It's not, anything goes, but that's something that with the experience and knowledge of Street Sense, who again has done a lot of these signage projects, have a ballpark feel for costs of materiality and what have you. Going
in Reston, we have an organization called Public Art Reston If they
Yes.
could participate in the design, that would be very cool.
Well, the idea, we can certainly invite them as part of the design process. The idea here is that Street Sense would ultimately produce the designs, but yes, we could definitely involve them and get their ideas and input into what it could look like.
Thank you.
Barbara?
Hi, how are you, Elizabeth?
Hey, Barbara.
I'm going to be very self-serving here. Is there any way we can get some support in helping to get our church recognized, Washington Plaza Baptist Church, when we're working on the signage?
What do you mean by recognized? You
Well,
mean as a
people don't know
historic?
where we are. They have a hard time finding us.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I mean, to have it kind of have our name put out somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's something that we can, so those directional signs, again, we don't know what they say, but they could be providing directions to a variety of things. And I'll let maybe Street Sense can speak to that notion, but yes.
Yeah, I think as part of as the next phase, we have outlined at a conceptual level the need to get review from stakeholders on the signs as we develop them and make sure that we're including all the important things that need to be included.
Yeah, the design process will be very interactive with the community. We are looking for your input and guidance. I mean, this is a collective effort. This is not Street Sense telling you what the design should be. This is going to be a collaborative process, just as the messaging and the identification. I'm sure the stakeholders will have lots of input on what the sign should say, the message schedule, things like that. This process is designed for that. We are counting and hoping for community input and community participation. So.
But I've already made a note. Oh, sorry, Barbara.
We really would appreciate any support in helping us grow the church and helping us bring awareness, because the architecture kind of blends the church so perfectly into the environment that it doesn't look churchy. So it doesn't, just by looking at the building, it doesn't say, oh, you're a church kind of thing. So we'd love any support you could give us. Thank you.
And maybe a building sign too would really help. We talked about that. Maybe some buildings want them, or I don't know. Anyway, yes, we can talk about all of that.
I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, I just want to comment that I think that that's where the naming of buildings would help.
Mm-hmm.
Like if the vernacular of the destination of the location is okay, everybody is familiar with the Quayside and
Mm-hmm.
the Heron House and the J, and the church, and the I mean, not every single building does have a name, but
Sure.
yeah, but I think that would help.
Okay. Yeah.
One last comment. I think the top priority for me personally and some of the other businesses is the sign at the V dot, what do you call it? The V dot spot. People tell us time and time again, I've been there 28 years, that they didn't know we were there. I think that would help them out immensely.
Yes.
Thank you. That's good feedback.
Any thoughts about the current brand? Do we want to continue to sort of incorporate a lot of those elements? I don't know if you want to go back to that, Jody, or letting people look at the survey, but
I don't have my hand raised, but I'll chime in.
okay.
Romano. I just posted in the chat, well, a few things that I posted in the chat. I don't know if anybody's following along in the chat, but
I saw it. Yeah, thank you.
building names would be really helpful for all the reasons that were mentioned by Susie
Yes.
and the church and others. I think the idea of a brand refresh would, personally, I would be very much in favor of it. I love this branding. I think it's really quirky and cute and fun. It's served us all very well as a community of those of us who have used it over the years. It served us very well. However, I think that part of revitalization is, paying homage to the history, but also always being willing to take a fresh look at things. And if there's money in the budget for somebody to study a rebranding, or not even a rebranding, but a brand enhancement, as it were. I just went recently through this process using Fairfax County Youth Thrive program for one of my two businesses to do a brand refresh. And it was absolutely fantastic to have a group of professional designers and marketing experts look at my brand and tell me how I could improve it. And we ended up ultimately, we didn't change our logo, we didn't change anything major, but we did change and enhance the way that we present ourselves. And that was really eye-opening for me. And just a sort of changing your style, whether that goes from quirky to sophisticated or, whatever it is. I mean, for this, I'm not suggesting that that's what needs to happen here at all, but, for me, what's really important is that we have this amazing history of place. We've lost all the icons on the plaza. I mean, they're now memorialized in an art display, but the businesses all used to have these great icons that identified each business on the plaza. And so if we think back about the way that this plaza was marketed when it was built and what mattered, the art, the sculpture, the fountain is our, it's sort of our mascot, right? It sits in the middle of the plaza. Right now, it's not even working. So there are things that we need, as we're working towards revitalization, to not forget that we have this amazing art and we have this style that exists, that a modern art, a modern company that does this, and there are many, many of them. I see Barbara's asking who we use for our brand refresh. I won't share their name here just because I don't think that I would promote them over any other professional marketing firm that does this for a living. There are lots of people that do this and are amazing at it. So having somebody take a look with fresh eyes and saying, here are thoughts on a logo, and here are thoughts on a color palette. It doesn't necessarily have to change from what it is. There are a lot of things, especially the colors. I think I'm very fond of them in this branding, but having somebody, take a solid look at this and give us suggestions for how to improve are great. And then this, again, just I put this in the chat, but a beacon sign is like an amazing opportunity for, as Susie mentioned, like public art Reston to come in, or some kind of public art, an artist who might be able to look at the existing historic public art that we have on the plaza and create some sort of beacon signage, beacon icon that would sit out there on Baron Cameron that would, be reminiscent of these amazing concrete sculptures that we have. Imagine if there was one of them sitting out there in the middle of Baron Cameron where people drove by and went, what is that? And it made them stop and want to come see more of that, So that's my 2 cents, lots of words, but I already filled out my survey while y'all were talking. To go and put in their 2 cents as well.
Doesn't she get a door prize? No, I'm just kidding.
I would
be seeing this project come to fruition. I'm so excited about this. I just am so thankful for the work that you've done, Yeoman's work, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
I actually was a part of this current brand development, and I think that it's important to just, stuff gets stale and things change, so I would totally be on board with and trust that I trust that design professionals are not going to come in and ignore who we are. They're going to honor who we are. So.
Yeah, and I would tag on that our brand team who would be doing this work, the community vision process is kind of the first step in their brand process. So it would come from the work that's already been done.
Yeah, we're highly skilled at this. We do it all over the country for communities, all the way through the private sector. So it's well within our wheelhouse.
It'd be fun if we could take your logo and tweak it and say "Eat, Shop, Pray" and use it in our use it on our church website.
That's cute.
Just
Did
think
you
about
miss
it.
your calling, Barbara?
I can't do it without your permission, so just think about it. And I'm joking, but I'm serious. It would be a really cute addition to our website.
We'll have to ask Elizabeth Gilbert if we can do that. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I won't do it without your permission, but I think it's adorable.
Might have to pay royalties on that.
Clever, and I think that you should do it with no one's permission. Nobody's trademarked these 3 words. As a matter of fact, one of my employees from Lake Ann Brew House is in Louisville, Kentucky, and just sent a photograph of a storefront that has in gigantic letters across the top of it, "Live, Work, Play." And but I can't get away from Reston without finding Reston. So
It follows you.
yeah, I mean, nobody's trademarked these words. So I think that "Live, Work, Pray" or "Eat, Shop, Pray" is
That's
amazing.
really cute.
And if I were you, I would put it in your next social media post that you send out tomorrow morning for your
We're having a church council meeting tomorrow, and I'm definitely going to bring it up. I'm going to see if I can get a screenshot of this. I'm not
Nobody's gonna
good at
see you.
We'll have it online too. This, Barbara, you can get it off our
Perfect.
website.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. I'm glad you all chuckled and were on board with me.
Very clever. Well, wonderful.
Well, yeah, if there aren't any other comments right now, I just want to say again how much we appreciate those of you who continue to stay engaged and give feedback throughout this process. Really, we couldn't do it without that. So
I truly apologize for being late, but I had a late hairdresser appointment. I just cut 4 inches off my hair. Important things.
We understand. We understand.
Thank you.
Well, this is great. Dashwan, remind me how long this survey's out for again?
June 11th. Sorry.
June 11th,
June 11th.
open to June 11th.
So spread the word to everybody you bump into or have contact with. Get the word out about the survey. They can go to our website to see the slide deck and the recording of this meeting. If there's any follow-up questions, they can get in touch with either Dashwan or myself. If we can't answer it, we'll get an answer from Street Sense, and that's what we're hoping to do, is get all that input, and then we'll come back with the community meeting to share what we've learned from this meeting and the survey and any other questions or conversations we have between now and then.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat.
Oh,
We will be following up. The county will be following up with an email with the survey link and this information, right? Is that?
Yes, we will, tomorrow we'll send out an email to everyone about the survey, and also, send link to the website regarding the presentation document, and also the recording of this meeting. So it will be all public information.
Well, I want to thank all of you for all the hard work you're doing. It's and your constant focus on Lake Ann. It's a really beautiful thing. Thank you very much.
go Lake Ann.
Yep. We love working with you guys. You're awesome.
Eat, shop, pray. Eat, shop, pray.
I like it. I really like it.
Put that on your church. Put those words on your church building. I think
I'm going to
wonderful.
see if we can get it on our church website.
I think it's great.
There. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a
Thanks,
wonderful
everybody. Have a
evening.
great day.
All
Thanks,
right.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye.